Black Box Flight Investigations. Loved what you saw? Smash that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notified every time we post a new video. LaGuardia Airport, New York, January 15, 2009. On the tarmac, a U.S. Airways Airbus A320 passenger plane is preparing to operate the scheduled domestic flight 1549, routed from New York to Seattle with a stopover in Charlotte. 155 people are boarding the aircraft, 150 passengers and 5 crew members. A very experienced crew is preparing to fly the plane. The captain, 57-year-old Chesley Sully Sullenberger, who has 19,663 flight hours. As a military pilot, he flew the F-4 Phantom fighter, and as a commercial pilot, he flew aircraft such as the Boeing 737, McDonnell Douglas DC-9, and Airbus A320. The first officer, 49-year-old Jeffrey Skiles, was also an equally experienced pilot, having flown 15,643 hours in his career. In the cabin, there are 3 flight attendants, 57-year-old Sheila Dale, 58-year-old Doreen Welsh, and 51-year-old Donna Dent. The weather at LaGuardia Airport at this time was normal. Visibility was 16 kilometers, with scattered clouds at a lower boundary of 100 meters. The ground wind was 4 meters per second from a direction of 290 degrees.
Cactus 1549, ready for takeoff.
Cactus 1549, cleared for takeoff.
At 1524, the controller gives the crew permission to depart. The Airbus A320 aircraft lifts off from runway 4 of LaGuardia Airport and sets a course for Charlotte. The plane begins to climb, and the pilots and passengers observe the beautiful view of the Hudson River opening up. Look at that view of the Hudson. Sully, what is that? Birds. It's birds. Birds in the engines. 90 seconds after takeoff, the cockpit voice recorder captures the captain's remarks about a bird strike. A second later, the sounds of impact were recorded, followed by the rapid fading of the sound from both engines. At this moment, the aircraft had only managed to climb to an altitude of 975 meters. Canada geese, having struck both engines, caused them to fail, and thrust began to drop sharply. In the cabin, there was silence and the smell of fuel. Realizing that both engines had failed, Captain Chesley Sullenberger takes control. While the first officer performs the engine restart procedure, the aircraft begins to slow down but continues to climb for a short time. Then it begins a gliding descent, accelerating to 390 kilometers per hour. The altitude at this moment is already 500 meters. Cactus 1549.
Turn left to a heading of 280.
This is Cactus 1549. We hit birds, we've lost thrust in both engines, we're returning to LaGuardia.
Okay, you need to return to LaGuardia. Turn left to a heading of 220.
Heading 220. Understood.
Tower, suspend all flights. We have an emergency return. Cactus 1549. They had a bird strike. They lost both engines. They're returning immediately.
At 1527, Captain Chesley Sullenberger contacts the controller and reports the emergency situation. In turn, Air Traffic Controller Patrick Harton orders the LaGuardia Tower to suspend all departures and directs Sullenberger back to runway 13. But Captain Sully replies that it's impossible. Relying on his experience, Captain Sully makes a quick calculation and realizes that returning to LaGuardia could end in disaster. He asks the controller for other landing options.
Cactus 15, runway 4 is available.
I'm not sure we can make it. What's to our right? Maybe New Jersey, maybe Teterboro?
Yes, okay. To your right is Teterboro Airport. Do you want to try for Teterboro?
Yes. Captain Chesley Sullenberger asks the controller for landing options in New Jersey. The controller gives permission to land on runway 1 at Teterboro Airport. Captain Sullenberger initially agrees, but then, after recalculating, realizes that this option is also impossible.
Cactus 1549. We can't land. We're going to be in the Hudson.
I'm sorry. Say again, Cactus.
At that moment, the plane is flying over the Hudson, passing the George Washington Bridge. Captain Sullenberger announces over the PA system, "Brace for impact," and the flight attendants prepare the passengers for a water landing. Meanwhile, Air Traffic Controller Patrick Harton contacts the Coast Guard, asking them to alert all vessels in the Hudson and prepare for a rescue operation. 7 minutes after takeoff, the Airbus A320 made an emergency water landing on the Hudson River, after which the crew announced an evacuation. Captain Chesley Sullenberger opened the cockpit door and gave the order to evacuate. The crew began evacuating passengers through the 4 overwing exits and onto inflatable slides deployed from the front doors. The evacuation was complicated by the fact that someone opened a rear door, causing more water to enter the plane. Whether it was a flight attendant or a passenger remains unknown. Finally, Chesley Sullenberger walked through the cabin twice to ensure all passengers were evacuated. He was the last to leave the sinking aircraft. The air temperature at that moment was -7 degrees Celsius, and the water was 5 degrees above zero. Some evacuees waited for help knee-deep in water on partially submerged rafts. Some were in life vests. Others stood on the wings or, fearing an explosion, swam away from the plane. One passenger helping with the evacuation found the wing so crowded that he jumped into the river and swam towards a boat. 2 NY waterway ferries arrived within minutes and began taking people on board. Many other boats, including from the U.S. Coast Guard, also quickly arrived at the scene. Captain Sullenberger advised the ferry crews to first rescue those on the wings, as they were in greater danger than those on the slides, which were being used as life rafts. About 140 New York City firefighters arrived at nearby docks. Police, helicopters, various vessels, divers, and other rescuers provided medical assistance on the riverbank, where most of the passengers were taken. During the landing, 78 passengers received non-life-threatening injuries of varying severity. Almost everyone suffered from hypothermia. Flight attendant Doreen Welsh received the most serious injury, a deep gash in her leg. 24 passengers and 2 rescuers were hospitalized, but most were released the same day. Another passenger suffered an eye injury from jet fuel in the water and had to wear glasses. The investigation into the cause of the Flight 1549 accident was conducted by the National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, and the final report was published on May 4, 2010. At the hearing, the pilots faced accusations. They were under scrutiny for allegedly being able to land the plane at the departure airport or other nearby airports like Teterboro and Newark, but instead chose to ditch in the Hudson River. As evidence, simulator data was presented where the same situation was modeled, and in all cases, expert pilots managed to land the plane at LaGuardia, Teterboro, and Newark. In their defense, the pilots stated that the simulator pilots were prepared in advance for the bird strike and dual-engine failure, and they did not account for the human factor. The time needed for decision-making, which in reality took about 35 seconds as confirmed by the cockpit voice recorder, was not factored in. After this, the NTSB decided to rerun the simulations for Flight 1549, this time including the 35-second time delay. After this change, not a single simulator pilot managed to land the plane successfully on a nearby runway. After reviewing all scenarios, all accusations against the pilots were dropped. Ultimately, investigators concluded that the primary cause of the accident was a collision with Canada geese, which caused catastrophic damage to both engines, leading to a loss of thrust and the subsequent water landing. After the accident, all passengers received $5,000 in compensation for lost luggage, and those who could prove greater losses received additional compensation. Later, those on board at the time of the accident received an additional $10,000 for waiving further claims against the airline. After the passengers were evacuated, the plane was towed to a pier near the World Financial Center, about 6 kilometers from the ditching site, where it was recovered. After the investigation, the aircraft was acquired by the Carolinas Aviation Museum in Charlotte and became an important exhibit, a reminder of the miracle on the Hudson. It's good when everything has a happy ending. All 155 people returned to their families alive. This flight will be remembered forever, but most of all, they will remember Captain Chesley Sullenberger and the entire crew. Thanks to their actions and coordinated work, everyone was saved. As one of my subscribers recently wrote, "Some pilots are gifts from God." This phrase accurately describes today's hero, Captain Sullenberger, a man born to fly, even as a 16-year-old teenager. With a great desire to be a pilot, Sully took paid flying lessons. He then entered the United States Air Force Academy, where he flew various jet fighters. Only then did he move to commercial aviation, to which he dedicated 29 years, flying almost 20,000 hours. On that day, January 15, 2009, fate presented Captain Sullenberger with a test where he had to apply all his experience to save everyone on board the Airbus A320. The captain and the first officer worked as a single unit, acting cohesively, assessing the situation, and making the right decisions. Thank you, Captain. Friends, thank you for watching this video. Be sure to share your thoughts in the comments. If you liked this story, please like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. Until next time, friends.